Welcome to the podcast that's designed to fuel your success in selling technology solutions. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Telarus, and this is Next Level Biz Tech. Hey everybody, welcome back to another series on CX. Today we're talking about how to unleash CX excellence, and we're journeying into the Omni Channel world. Today, though, special guest, longtime Chief Technology Officer of 8x8, Bryan Martin. Bryan, welcome.
Josh, thanks. Great talking to you again.
So Bryan, as we kind of kick this thing off, I always love to hear the origin story, everybody's personal journey. Tell us about, have you always been in technology? Did you start out, washing cars and said, I don't like that anymore? How did you get here?
Yeah, no, I started out at Taco Bell, to be perfectly transparent, but
Yes.
in college I was torn between, I'd always done music through my high school years, was in a rock band, was a classically trained guitarist, but loved engineering. My dad was a mechanical engineer and worked for IBM and could bring home IBM, what was then not a PC, but on weekends I got to play, text-based Star Trek on that. And but got to school in college and was overwhelmed by the musical talent around me. So I thought I better keep my day job and get trained as an engineer. So joined up here at 8x8 right out of school. First became CTO of the company back in '95 when we were a kind of vendor of these technologies to people like, Lucent was our largest customer, British Telecom, a bunch of the service providers and equipment manufacturers. The dot-com bust hit. Lucent went in 1 year from being our largest customer to our smallest customer. And I became CEO of the company as we tried to pivot into the service provider business and relaunch the company as a service provider in 2002. And that's what we've been doing ever since. So that's the story.
Love it. Love it. I want to get into what your flavor and what you think CX is in 2023, but maybe just for anybody that is not familiar with 8x8, give us a real quick run of the land. Who are you? What's your focus? And kind of what's going on over there?
Yeah. So company is publicly traded. We're named after the basic building block of video compression. So we actually did video before voice. So it's 8 pixel by 8 pixel blocks that back in the day. Today, if we named ourselves, it'd be 1 by 2 because the precision of video compression has come way down as compute power has gone way up. But 20 plus year provider of business unified communications. That's where we got our start. We started selling contact center in 2011. So we're now a 12-year veteran in the contact center space. We started in inbound voice, and that's still what we're known for in contact center. But I will tell you, 2015, we really started working on chat. And a couple of years later, we started winning contact center deals against, digital chat only vendors and specialists. But we've really filled in the whole spectrum. So reporting, analytics, quality management, speech analytics, CPaaS. We bought a little CPaaS company in 2018, have integrated that into the platform. And we've also, I think what's different about 8x8 is we embraced other workplace environments that end users want to work out of. So became a very large partner of Microsoft Teams. I think we launched in 2020, but we were working on it for a year and a half before that. And we've got 350,000 seats of Teams users out there today too. So everything a business needs to communicate, whether it's voice, video, digital, SMS, fax, email, voicemail, put voicemails in queues still for some companies. You can come to us and we've got a single provider, single vendor, single platform to do it.
Awesome. All right, now talk to me about, we grew up in unified communications, contact center, and now today we're calling it CX, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about, from your perspective, what does CX mean in 2023 and why is this still so critically important?
So the problem any business has today is the customer experience bar has been set so high by companies like Amazon.com, by Apple. I can go order an Apple Watch and Apple will offer for, I think, $9 to drive it over to my doorstep within 2 hours. Amazon, I can return something without having to box it. I just literally drop it at some curbside drop off and it's done and my credit's there the same day. And it's just to operate at that level when you're not Amazon or Apple is something that you have to do because your customers are beginning to expect that. So I think in 2023, businesses of all sizes are how do we hit that speed mark? How do we make it convenient? How do we make it consistent? How do we make it friendly? How do we the one connector that kind of ties everything together is that human touch. And it's like, how do I make connections to my end customers by making the technology that you talked about, the old CCAS, UCAS stuff? We got to make that feel more human. And we've got to enable our employees in the business to deliver that better experience to the end customer. Otherwise, you're kind of irrelevant. Your brand's going to go away.
Fair. Let's talk about trends now. We've, seeing this the last 5, 10, 15 years, we've seen some crazy trends. So from your perspective, what are the trends that you're seeing here over the last 12 plus months from a CX perspective?
Yeah, I think, and it kind of mirrors, 8x8's journey is digital is now everywhere. And we certainly saw that coming. I've got two boys in their 20s, under pain of death. Will they make a phone call to actually get something resolved? So they don't want to talk to anyone. And that demographic will continue to shift. And it's already happening. I hesitate to say it with you, but AI actually matters. It's more than a buzzword, even though it's become a common headline that means nothing kind of because it's a headline. The other thing that's always driven me nuts in the contact center world, even going to the traditional on-prem contact center days, was handoffs, whether it's from a human to a human, whether it's a bot to a human, like they have to actually work. And what I mean by that is don't ask me, the end customer, to re-authenticate myself. I just spent 20 minutes talking to your bot and convincing it that I am the customer. And now I get on with a human. And the first thing you do is, well, can you tell me what your 4-digit code is?
Yeah,
Can
it's
you
the,
tell
it's the
last four of your
basics,
social?
right?
Like at least I've authenticated. Let's not make them do that again. And then I think the context of what the bot did or what the last human did, like hand that off too, because don't start from step one in your flow chart of how we're going to serve this customer. It's amazing to me how even large enterprise contact centers that are supposed to be these award-winning, customer experiences, a lot of them don't implement that. The moment you get transferred to someone else, you start over again. And it's always driven me nuts. And I'm finally seeing the technology catch up where it makes it easy for our customer to actually do that right and actually delight a customer by shortening the whole interaction.
Yeah, it's a good point. We talk about that a lot. For our partners that are listening, we always encourage everybody, put yourself in the shoes of your customer's customer.
Yep.
And because their asks are, well, how do I approach these? And we're going to get into some good questions on this, but how do I approach them? How do I talk to them? We have to be empathetic, and we got to see what's going on and put us in the customer's shoes. And when you do that, you inevitably just go find your prospects and test that experience out and see
Yeah.
what that's like. It's a
Yeah.
good point. Okay, so then coupling on that, we'll look forward a little bit here out into the future. Where do you see that goes then? Right, with my ominous music. Where do you see that goes? What do you see AI or whatever your future is successfully or unsuccessfully impacting?
Yeah. I'm not sure my answer is going to match the dramatic flair of the music, but we'll go there anyway. What we're seeing is the continued collapse of customer engagement with the traditional world of UC. And what I mean by that is, and I really hate this term, but it's really one of the better terms I've heard to describe it. It's what we have internally called the informal contact center. It's basically can be knowledge workers, it could be sales associates. Think of like a retail brick and mortar store of the future. And I want my sales associates walking the floor with tablets, interconnected with a gigabit connection. And I want them doing like voice and video contact center interactions with the customers that are on the floor, contacting the e-commerce site, getting things to, that really white glove experience. But for me to ask the sales associate to actually operate within a traditional contact center agent workspace doesn't make a lot of sense. And so what I have to present on the tablet is something that looks more like a traditional UC soft phone, but one that has access to these contact center capabilities and analytics and everything that comes along with that. You think about agent assist, like now I'm able to assist the sales associate directly in real time while they're interacting with the person in the store of the future. And so what we see is we think the world, and unfortunately the analysts get paid by the research note or by the quadrant or whatever they're publishing these days. And so they want to keep the world separate, but we really see those two worlds blending. And I think you're going to start to see that collapse accelerate. And if you look at what 8x8's really working on with a lot of our R&D, and we've got a labs program where we can bring real live production traffic into a sandbox and actually tweak it so the interface is right. I think you're going to see that informal contact center really start to appear in day-to-day communications applications.
Fair. Good. Let's talk about verticals. I want, as the partners listen to this, I want them obviously to learn a lot about you and your technology and the problems that you're solving. But where should they be targeting? I guess what industries are there? Verticals? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody needs help on CX. I suppose it's a really broad
Yeah, my,
question,
my,
but
my answer was going to be everyone.
but
So
if you
there is
boil
no
that down
vertical.
just a little, is there
But
any
if
more?
you start to refine, so a couple themes, right? So smaller businesses are struggling more to keep up with this customer engagement shift, right? Because they don't have the resources, they don't have the budget in IT, they don't have the personnel. So suddenly automation and bots that actually work become super important. If I can get 50% call deflection and get CSAT to go up, like that small business thinks this is, you just walked on water. And so I think that's something we are seeing across the board. I also think you're another way to say everyone. I'll refine. Everyone needs this to go on any website. I was just on a city website who had invested in a chat bot, and I won't name the city because I don't want to embarrass them. So I start secret shopping. That I'm like, oh, they got a chat bot. This is a modern city, 21st century city. And so I'm like, I convinced the city that I'm a resident. Um, I told it my first name. And then it said, okay, what do you want? And I said, I need to order garbage service. I just moved into the city. How do I get garbage service? And the thing spun for 5 minutes, literally spun. Like I had left the window, I'd gone on to something else. And then suddenly I heard the response tone and I came back and it had provided a URL. Garbage service info is available here. I clicked the URL and I got a 404 not found. So it still didn't work. But when I met with the city the next day, I said, hey, I was playing with your bot last night. And you guys using a human behind that to actually answer the questions? And so the answer would be anyone that's got a bot on any corporate or government website that doesn't actually work, like those are people to target. And they're super easy to find because almost every bot out there is going to do things like what I just described.
And I suppose I love that. That's probably one of my favorite pieces of advice is go experiment with what your prospects or your customers have right now. Maybe two things to that. We have a lot of people that ran out and bought stuff in a hurry in 2020 and tried to make do and just get by. And so
For sure.
now, obviously, you've got these contracts coming up. You've got opportunity there. But you bring up a good point to probably drive home is just because you see that they have stuff doesn't mean it works great. So
Yeah.
push it past step one, past step two, and just test it out and try. It's a great point. Let's get into the weeds here. I want to talk about a deal. So I like and what we call out on this part of the podcast is things don't always end up as they seem. Right? They might start out of like, hey Bryan, I need your help on this deal. This customer needs to lift and shift this old phone system or whatever, right? And you
Right.
get into it, it's just something completely different. So we're talking about the journey and the journey into Omni Channel and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
walk me through an opportunity. What did it look like? What did they have? What was the problem? And then what actually ended up going in?
Yeah. So we recently closed a relatively large deal with a Teleris partner. So you'll be happy to hear about
Woohoo.
this. And they're well into their deployment now, and it's going very well. Medical and disability services firm, and just to size it, like 6-figure monthly recurring revenue and probably 7-figure total contract value easily. And so what we were told going into the deal was, legacy UC that's no longer supported and trying to figure out what to do with MS Teams. But as we started actually meeting with the customer, we always start with kind of these high level listening workshops where, we're not coming in to present until we actually know, to your
Yeah.
point, what the customer needs. And it turned out they had roughly 1,000 seat contact center application that had moved to the cloud, but had been experiencing severe reliability and liability, as the customer explained to me, because it was costing them so much. And I love these use cases, and I kind of call it people that have they've moved to the first generation cloud, like they made the move. Maybe that wasn't the right move in retrospect, and they don't have the right SLA or the right provider, whatever it is. But the cool thing about these use cases then is, one of the things I fight is the cost of doing nothing. Like customers that have depreciated contact center systems don't have to do anything. They can just keep going with what they have. But when you've got outage issues, the cost of doing nothing is already been established by the customer. I don't have to explain to them how much it's
Yeah.
costing them. And then they also we uncovered a really deep, they use Zoho to run the business. And so needed a deep integration with Zoho, which has been one of our long-term integration partners. So we actually went from the executive workshops to what we call chair sides, where we come on site. We've started doing virtual chair sides in the last year because contact center agents typically are virtual now, so that's not unusual. This one we were able to actually come on site, which I think is much more effective because I can see everything the agent is doing and how their processes work and which screens and how many windows and how many clicks. And when you're virtual, like we can see their desktop, but you don't always see the whole picture. But we spent about a half day collecting the info. We interviewed agents, watched them work, talked to the supervisors. And then, what 8x8 does in a large pre-sales deal like that is we'll come back with a 30 to 40 page kind of findings and recommendations. These are the things we think you could do. Here are some tools that 8x8 supplies that we think would be super relevant to look at. And we went from that readout to a very small proof of concept to just show them. And we picked jointly 10 success criteria, and the deal closed 2 to 3 months after that. So it's a very typical engagement. I really encourage your partners, like even in the discovery phase, if you can get on site and watch what's going on in the contact center, you'll learn a lot by just being a fly on the wall.
I love it. I love defining success criteria because sometimes we go into these thinking, well, if we just show them cool technology and wow them, like, yeah, they're going to sign here and press hard. But if we don't flush out, what's your needs versus your
Yeah,
wants and what's success, I think that's just sometimes such an overlooked part of the process, right? So
for
you're just
sure.
watching these things click, 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 click. Got it. Done
Yeah.
deal.
And every vendor of technology is going to come in with the greatest story since the wheel. Everyone says their stuff's the greatest and the best and the biggest. And honestly, at that stage, you should really be just listening and having a conversation, not pushing your slideware at the customer.
It reminds me of this, talking about, I think the preface for what made us come up with this question for this podcast was we had a partner ask us, hey, will you just come out with me? I think there's something weird. Here's what the customer's telling me, but it doesn't quite make sense. And there's a political battle from C-level to director over the contact center. So I'm going to thrust you right into the middle of it.
Yeah,
And so we had the executive meeting first, and they said, we believe our demographic is college students, right? It was a college, and we think our demographic for our college students, we just know that none of them are going to want to talk to us, right? They made some assumptions, and I suppose a fair assumption, right? We're all going through that of where our kids don't want to talk to us, they want to text, whatever.
yeah,
But they said we've actually gotten rid of voice because of how busy we are, and we think that's the right decision. So come in, get some feedback, blah 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 blah, and it was crazy. The simplest thing. I mean, in the first hour, so overwhelming, sitting with the agents, and when we ask them, right, when the manager's not over their shoulder,
Yeah.
are people happy that you guys got rid of voice? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, no. All they ask us for is the number
That's an
because
awesome
inevitably
story.
our stuff is really complicated and sometimes we just
Oh,
can't solve it on the front end. And so we need to call like
that is the
really simple
purpose.
stuff. So
That is the
yes.
purpose of the chair side. And honestly, the some contact center managers or supervisors will be very uncomfortable of the notion that you want to sit alone with their agent for 20 minutes. I'm telling you, you have to. It's the
Yeah.
only way to find out what's really going on. So that's a great story, Josh.
Love it. All right. Pro tips from Bryan Martin. Let's talk about if I'm a partner, maybe I haven't ventured into CX yet. Maybe I'm focused on cloud or I'm security or I'm network or SD-WAN or whatever, something totally different. Maybe I'm a new partner.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the probing questions of ask the question and just listen. So
Yeah.
with regard to kind of what we've talked about, what are some of those great questions or a strategy that
Yeah.
you would give to our partners if they're all excited and they're ready to go uncover opportunities for you? What are you advising them to say?
Yeah, so there are very simple like process oriented questions you can ask. It's things like, in your customer engagement, where your business touches your customers, do you ever use spreadsheets to schedule or to figure out, how many people are we going to need? How do you forecast how the business is growing and how you're improving? What's your call deflection strategy is one of my favorite like opening questions to just open up the whole notion that there is a world where humans don't need to be involved. And the funniest thing people don't understand yet is it's not about getting fewer humans. It's about the humans who are the agents being happier because they're not having to spend their day answering stupid questions, which 50% of the callers or interactions are about. And so it's like you will retain more call center employees by automating the stuff that humans really shouldn't be dealing with. So I think those are some questions. I always get in trouble, and I know I've been doing it on this call. So never use the word contact center until you know what the business calls its
Mhm.
customer engagement function. Never ever use the word agent, and I know I've been using it the whole call. It's what we refer to it internally as that
Yeah.
interface and that workflow. But honestly, like I learned the mistake the first time I was in front of one of the public service, national toll free, service lines in front of their national convention. And I started talking about agents and how we're going to improve and literally a woman in the first row stood up and said, I am not an agent. I am a social worker. So you've got to figure out what the business calls its customer engagement people, and you better start using their terminology like hour zero. And same goes for supervisor. And a lot of groups will take offense if when you're making that inquiry about the contact center function, never use the word contact center because they may not think of themselves that way. That toll-free national line didn't think of itself as a contact center. It was like a help facility. So um, those are some things, and we've already talked about like don't dive off on your tech and your feature set and all these vendors that you can bring in to do X, Y, and Z. You've really what customers want to be convinced of is the stories you can tell about other organizations that are similar to where they are, how you're going to work with the vendor community to remove risk, how you're going to guarantee a successful outcome, and do a lot of listening. The customer, I do love like some of the tools we use. Chorus.ai now for all of our. It's got a little 8x8 note taker that pops
Hmm.
up, and one of the things I always look at is how much did our sales team talk and the partner team versus the customer. And in meeting number one, customer better be doing almost all the talking because your job right there is just to go gather that info. So that would be kind of a random list of tips.
Great
Hopefully that
advice.
helps.
Love that. That's such again, it's a basic thing, but it's so overlooked. You have an agenda, you get rolling on that agenda, and
Yeah,
man, I'm going to get through it.
never, ever, ever. That's the worst part about PowerPoint, right? We talk about death by
Oh,
PowerPoint, but it locks you
yes.
into what you're going to say. And honestly, you need to listen and then react and ask more questions. I hate people that can't like divorce themselves from the presentation that they made the day before to go in with,
Yep.
and not the right
Read the
approach.
room, listen to the audience, and just adjust.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome examples are great. All right. As we wrap this up, right? 8x8 been around a long time. You've continued to evolve tech to focus on CX. From a future and prediction perspective, anything you want to share kind of about where you're at, where you're going, or anything that you want us to pay attention to of just disruptive things that you want us to be cognizant of?
Yeah, so I think two things, right? So number one, and I alluded to kind of how we view the world of Teams as a partner, not as a competitor, not trying to like push 8x8 mobile apps if a Teams mobile app is what the customer wants. Same thing is going on. We've launched this year, we call it the technology partner ecosystem, but it's really super tight integrations with strategic partners that we want to feel native with the 8x8 platform. We typically sell them on our paper. It's included on the same bill, but it's a much tighter integration than what you'll find in some of the app stores and extensions stores that are out there with a lot of our industry. So that's a new strategy for 8x8. 2018, I was trying to hire AI specialists out of IBM Watson and build everything ourselves, and we're going to do everything. I can build that AI better than what we just saw. And it was a mistake because the space is moving too quick, and there's just too many specialists out there and too much VC money behind them. And people are going to have breakthroughs, and you better be able to adapt to that. So we want to continue to own our platform and be like the source of truth at the core center of a customer solution. But we are now rapidly embracing third-party solutions with tight native integrations that are curated by 8x8. So I think that's one thing that we're going to do. And I think it's disruptive because most of our competitors aren't looking at that as a strategy. They're still trying to build everything. And then number two, the other thing that it's near and dear to my heart, but it's starting to come true is video as a channel in the contact center. And it's not a two-way video. 8x8 owns we're the largest sponsor of Jitsi, JITSI, which is the world's largest open source platform for video meetings. And we've got a hardened version of Jitsi that's always been included in our platform. But we're seeing use cases now where the agent, I'm in a voice interaction with you, but I really need to see the actual like part on the radiator that's leaking so that I can make sure my technician has that on his or her truck when we do the truck roll. And the agent can now SMS to the end customer a link. One click on the link on the mobile phone will bring up a prompt that says this site wants to use your camera. Are you going to allow that or not allow? End customer just has to click allow. And now the agent can see through the video device that's in the end customer's hands. We can validate that that's the right radiator part. We'll make sure we've got that on the truck and it's on its way. And now we're going to have one truck roll. And we've seen this in property management, insurance applications. Most recently, a company in the UK called Holiday Taxi, who's literally like their agents are sitting around with nothing to do because things have been automated so much and there's not all these repeat calls and escalations and tier two. And so we're seeing lots of cases where video is relevant. It's not to see the agent, it's for the agent to see the world. And I think that's got legs longer term as we continue to build that story out. So I think that's disruptive. I think you need to be with a partner that is able to accommodate that dynamic evolution and disruption. But those are some things we're working on that are really cool.
Awesome. Golden nuggets. Everybody go rewind and listen to that. Good stuff, man. All right, Bryan, that wraps us up. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure, Josh. Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, everybody, that wraps us up for today. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Telarus, Bryan Martin, Chief Technology Officer at 8x8. Till next time, everybody.
Next Level BizTech has been a production of Telarus Studio 19. Please visit Telarus.com for more information.